Well, hopefully at this point you have learned a lot about Huntington's disease and its progression and treatment and testing and the genetics. And so now I'm going to dive into my story. So, as I mentioned, my paternal grandfather died at 48 of Huntington's, and that is all I know because my father does not want to be tested for the gene uh, to know if he will develop Huntington's. He is 48 with no signs, which is good, but not for certain. So, do I have reason to be concerned? What are my chances? I have a 25% of having the Huntington's disease gene. So, as we can see in the pedigree on the website, we derived my father has a 50% risk of having the gene because of its dominant inheritance pattern, and that means that I have a 25% risk. So if he does have the gene, my risk is 50%, but because we do not know his status, we have to use the product law of probability, multiplying the two 50% and getting my risk of 25%. So if I have the gene, that does in fact mean my father also has the gene, because that is the only way it could be passed down if he does have it. I have the right to get tested is up to me and me alone, but I must respect my father's wishes as he does not want to know his status. So, regardless of my decision, I will not inform my father because he has chosen his right to know. So, we both individually have our own rights to know. So, what does it mean if I have the disease? Will my children get it? What? So if I do have the gene, I will likely develop symptoms within the next 10 years, considering the following. The average age of onset is 35 to 44 years of age, and gene anticipation leads to a younger age of onset, meaning I will likely be on the earlier side of onset. Genetic anticipation is paternal, and the gene is, as mentioned, on my father's side. Considering my grandfather died at 48 and my father is 48, not yet showing symptoms, that is a very good sign that he likely does not have it, as genetic anticipation would indicate that he would already be showing symptoms. But again, nothing is for certain, and we cannot know without a test or waiting for symptoms. So if I do have the gene, my children each have a 50% chance of developing the disease, just as if my father has the gene, I have a 50%. And because my father's father had the gene, my father has 50%. So children of those with the disease have a 50% chance. So for all of these aforementioned reasons, I am deciding that I will get predictive testing for the gene. There are a lot of psychological detriments I could face with this very upsetting knowledge, but I would rather know and make preparations. As I said, I will not inform my father of my results because that is completely his decision to know whether or not he has the gene and will develop the disease, and he has chosen not to, and I will respect that wish. So in terms of family planning, this knowing whether or not I have the Huntington's disease gene will help me move forward with planning family. If I do have the gene, I will use something called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis to make sure my child will not have the disease. So this occurs when through in vitro fertilization, and the resulting embryos are then genetically tested, and one is chosen that, in my case, will not have the Huntington's disease gene. This will ensure that regardless of my status, I will not be passing on the gene to my child. While I could risk the odds, I would rather know and be certain. That is the conclusion that all of my research has come to. So I ultimately hope this podcast has been informative on Huntington's and how I went down my path of deciding. Thank you for tuning in.